All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 49.
The gang's back together.
Yeah, we got Julian coming back. We've got Yang joined up with
Bukak and his fleet.
Yep,
Bukak is still alive.
Bukak is still alive.
And they survived, you know? Like,
Yeah, they
Reinhardt
lost-
definitely won, but...
They lost the battle. Reinhardt, however, ended up going a different direction, which might be in some ways seen as a pseudo not entire loss, you know, with regards to the way that Yang maneuvered things here at the very end. So now it's essentially, what kind of game plan does Yang and company play here with Reinhardt potentially having the option to just beeline it to Heinesen and end the alliance?
Right, because he's probably going to do that.
Because that would make sense. He doesn't have to engage Yang's fleet and the alliance fleet, really, in order to win here. This is capture the flag.
Yep, and by the way, he could probably still crush Yang's fleet. So
right. So he could just basically just assume a really good formation. You know, I don't know how they're going to, maybe deal with the whole idea of supply lines and stuff in general. But maybe they'll be like, no, we're close enough. We don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, let's take Heinesen and that's it. You know, Ruental's coming through the Iserlohn corridor. Like,
True.
We've got this.
True. Yeah, Ruental being on his way is just another piece on the board that Reinhardt will have that Yang can't necessarily predict.
Nope.
Like, this is just a really, really bad situation. And yeah, you're getting worked overtime, buddy.
Right.
No extra pay, no good deed goes unpunished. Here we go. But yeah. Y'all,
boy.
Without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. All right, we've got our new battle groups all basically
Squadding
assembled.
up and setting out.
Yep, so 180,000 ships and 20 million soldiers on the Empire side with Yang, Bukak, Mercats, and a whole host of everybody else getting ready to head out. And they are going to do their damnedest to make this work. Tactically, I have no idea what they're going to be able to do to lure out individual fleets.
Right. I'm guessing what they're going to try and do is attack the supply lines.
Right, that makes sense, but Reinhardt...
But Reinhardt's just going to be going for Heinesen, so unless they just say, if he takes Heinesen, that's no big deal, as long as we end up, you know, like sabotaging their attack, and then Reinhardt ends up dying.
So okay, here's the issue with the whole thing of them going straight to Heinesen. I'm glad that they brought this up. Is that they still need to be able to refuel from jumps. They can't just jump straight to Heinesen.
Right.
So the kind of the world building thing that's lightly being touched upon here is that they are then sending supplies for fuel and all kinds of other stuff like that from all the way back in Fejan.
Right.
All the way here. So it's basically a little dotted line of stuff coming in here.
Yep.
If Yang basically goes for I will attack the supply lines so far back that they can't protect it, then basically what he'll do is be like, okay, I won't chase you. I will just basically make my way from one planet to the other until you come to me to protect your people. However, that goes against their desire to rule the people rather than to subjugate and dominate them via extreme military force and, terror.
Well,
so I feel like Yang has to kind of not attack the supply lines entirely. He has to basically extend the supply lines in ways that aren't towards Heinesen. Like
Yang or Reinhardt?
Yang. Yang has to make Reinhardt change direction of his fleet.
Well,
and then harass the supply lines at times to where he has to then slightly spread out his fleet to make them vulnerable to at least some kind of attack.
So what I'm guessing is going to end up happening, because the Yang said that, okay, we're not going to go after Reinhardt or any of the twin sons, right? Because we'll avoid them as much as possible. We want to go after the weakest. So
Right.
I'm guessing that when Reinhardt inevitably needs to sort of split up the fleet in order to maintain supply lines while keeping the main force going towards Heinesen, Yang will then pick off whatever are the weakest stragglers along the supply lines to disrupt things.
I'm saluting you in advance, Bittenfeld. I'm saluting you in advance. Your beautiful panty-chasing self.
Bittenfeld,
I salute you in advance.
But if it is, good job.
Yeah, of all the ones on the list of Reinhardt's like squad of bros, like of all of them, the only one that has like less, I would say, like thing there is
Yang
probably like Steinmetz or something like that.
Sure, like Yang could definitely dance his way around or make Bittenfeld dance to his tune, no problem, because Bittenfeld is a very straightforward person. But hopefully, I hope for Bittenfeld's sake that one, that doesn't happen, but that two, Reinhardt doesn't relegate him to maintaining supply lines,
right?
Because that's not where his skills are. Well, it's not what he wants, and that's not where his skills are best suited, right?
Skills, it's just personality, dude.
Well,
hey, the Black Lancers, yes, are supposed to be fast. That is a point of them.
They know how to charge forward real good,
But you know what this is also? Mm-hmm. This is a meta point of the narrative to give individual focus to an admiral within Reinhardt's fleet.
Yep.
And have the story be given a legitimate reason to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you don't separate them a little bit, they're all cast in the shadow of Reinhardt, Oberstein, Mittermeier, and Ruenthal, all much more powerful characters in the narrative who already have a lot more character to them. Yes. Why would we focus on Fahrenheit, for instance, out of, all the rest of them?
Yep.
And get like a little bit more to know about his character without having a reason for him to be on like a specific task with a specific mission.
And one of the things that since pretty much the beginning of the show that I've been looking forward to is seeing how the inevitable showdown between Yang and Reinhardt ends up getting built up to.
Yeah.
Because Reinhardt has a lot of very competent people under him, right?
Right.
So it makes sense that they could end up running into Yang, especially because Yang is always had the short end of the stick as far as the amount of forces that he was in command of.
He is always the enemy underdog when it comes to military on the strategic sense.
Right, exactly. Yeah. When it comes to just numbers, he usually doesn't have the advantage there. Yeah. So I was always kind of figuring that there would be sort of like a working his way up the food chain kind of a thing, whether it was with the old empire or with Reinhardt's new regime, until he got to Reinhardt, right?
Right.
So that seems like it seems like we have a specific mechanical reason as far as why that will happen and why Yang is specifically going to do that, because he has to target the weakest first, right?
Right.
Because if he, even if he did manage to beat Mittermeier or Ruenthal, they would take out enough of his ships that he wouldn't be able to confidently maneuver
as well.
Exactly, right.
So one of the things that I think that will need to happen from Reinhardt's perspective is he'll have to set up some tasty looking bait. Sure. And basically be like, I'm going to give you some options, Yang. Where do you want to attack me from? I will let you, make the first move because you're on a time limit. I will eventually make my way to Heinesen.
Right, and then you lose.
Right. But maybe I don't have to get to Heinesen in order to win. The idea that one of the admirals, I'm going to go back and check to see which one brought it up. I think it was Mittermeier. Brought up the idea that there's a possibility that we don't necessarily win if we take Heinesen. That is not necessarily a guaranteed victory. And that's just a valid logical point to bring up, is that do we have any ways we can instantly win? Off the top of our head, the ones that make the most sense are not guaranteed victories, unlike Reinhardt getting assassinated by the Alliance.
On a fundamental level, everything will fall apart if Reinhardt is killed. Yeah. Unless Ruenthal and Mittermeier are able to really, really do a good job of keeping things together, it will fall to shambles.
Yeah, and also we know that those two already see things with the Empire a little bit differently already, to where they wouldn't even be unified in their approach to running the Empire's military, temporarily until a new leader was found.
Yeah. If only Kierheis was still alive.
If only Kierheis was here. Can we just talk about how much of this show is altered forever because of Kirheis's death. There was so much in this episode that was thematically bringing up the idea of how beneficial it is for Yang and Julian that they have each other. There's so much that they pass back and forth between each other in their relationship out on the professional level, as the military sense, but also just as friends, as mentor and mentoree,
And that stuff bleeds into the military stuff.
It does.
I loved that line where Yang was saying, "Hey, I learned from you," right?
Right.
Because he does. Reinhardt is amazing, right? He is incredibly talented. He's gifted. He is brilliant. But he's worse off for not having Kirheis with him. And that's not just because he has to actually physically be here. Because, yes, he could have just turned everything over to Kirheis and been like, take it away, bro. Like,
that would have been so
that would have been so awesome. And I would have and the conversation between Yang and Kirheis is one that I would have also have loved to see. Right? Because God, they would have gotten along so well. They would have. Like, it would have been the most polite battle of destruction ever. It would be amazing. But, and reminders like that in this, galactic conflict, right? Where you have 20 million soldiers on one side and however many Yang has, right? Huge numbers of people where it could be very easy for the individual to get lost in it. It's just another statistic kind of a thing. But the loss of a single person, right? Now, Kirheis was definitely exceptional and everything.
Well, it's because of his connection to Reinhardt.
But because of his connection to Reinhardt, that had huge, far-reaching consequences because of how much Kirheis mattered to Reinhardt, how much he made Reinhardt a better person, right? So now he doesn't have that. And the fate of history will be shaped as a result of it. Not directly, but
eventually. So we have the characters getting to reconnect with one another. Yang was apprised of everything that went on in Fejon via Julian's perspective. And also we got the tip that a lot of things with regard to Degsby and the church were spilled to Julian. So now Julian passes all that on to Yang, and we have the classic setup in the story where a lot of really important info just switched hands, and the show acknowledged that this needed to happen.
And now this thing. Julian knows about the way to get Isolon back.
Right, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, because we spent already a lot of time in the show understanding Julian's perspective during this time, so we can just fade to black and cut to the next thing. And Naruhodo, I get it.
Right.
It's, we can move on from there, because then there are judgment calls that we need to see Yang make, having this new information in combination with what he already knew before this and who he is as a person. So he's then sending Bagdash to take this whole thing with the Church of Terra seriously and investigate that. That's another cool plot line we can explore at some point in the future.
And I liked the idea of having off-screen conversations basically that happened with Degsby because they're on a trip, right? It was in a very intense moment of the series. We don't need to see some conversation while Degsby's dying because we don't really know him or care about him that much, right? Exactly. We saw him like once before he ran into Julian.
Right.
So okay. But it is some crucial information because the Church of Terra has been a thing for a while now. The connection with TrueNet, the connection with Fejon and like the people leading, Fejon, right?
Right. The potential that this war in some ways is getting perpetuated by people who want it to not end. Right. Want it to go on for as long as possible. And the idea of Yang kind of briefly bringing up the idea of how, because of our history and being the history nerd that he is, he brings up the idea that, yes, we used to have a way of doing things, a center of our universe, if you will, that we had to move on from. We had to, in some ways, let it go, leave it behind. You can see where the themes are being brought into play here. Yes, let it die. Just because it was something that served us for, a while, and we, did get a bunch of stuff from it, we're no longer babes. We are not supposed to stay in the womb forever. Right. And the idea of Reinhardt's kind of struggle with this whole thing to kind of
let Kirheis die.
Well, in some ways to grow up without his caring, supportive friend is in some ways basically the harsh reality of his umbilical cord of connection, of just this beautiful love that they shared for each other just being gone.
Yep.
And it's like...
And he's still desperately trying to hold on to it.
He's still desperately trying to cling to
Camille.
it. Yep.
And Mariendorf recognizes that.
Totally
right?
recognizes
She sees it,
that.
so she's like, okay, well, I want Reinhard to do as well as he can.
Yeah.
So this thing that I picked up on,
right,
I'll foster it, basically.
Yeah, she realizes that there's no serious immediate harm that could come from this being a little bit of a crutch for him, because she realizes how bad it could get if he didn't have something to lean on a little bit.
Yep.
We're all human. We're only human. I'm all human after all.
Right.
But in this case here, the Church of Terra's whole thing of clinging to this past way of doing things and that we owe some recognition and all that to the fact that we're here, that's valid. That's valid just in the same way that
just action.
Right. It's in the same way that, the Alliance was formed because of their leader, Heinesen, doing some grand effort and stuff. It doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to treat the efforts and the work of this, potentially great man in a way that is even the right way of doing it. Like, we've now deified him in statuesque form in Heinesen.
Is very similar to the kind of stuff that has happened with Yang and Julian.
Yep.
Right?
They're now getting put into the populist kind of role of, promise to us that you can do this.
Oh, yeah, that whole scene was just like, whoa,
the fact that we went from the politician who was like, I understand. Sorry, Walter Islands. He was the Secretary of Defense guy.
Yeah.
He's like, I totally understand why you can't do that.
I'm sorry for bringing that up.
Yeah, we don't want to,
get in your way.
Exactly. Immediately after that, the reporters come in. And they're like, do the thing that you just said earlier. It's stupid to do.
Right.
God, it's so perfect.
And the way it was also like this almost like threat of like, are you saying you can't promise that to us?
Right. Don't you love this nation?
Right. I loved Yang's non-response to the whole "don't you love this nation" kind of a thing. And granted, that was in the earlier conversation of just like, I am, it was so diplomatic and so like subtle of just sort of the thing of not saying, yes, I love this nation.
Be like, I will do my best to protect the fruits of democracy or something like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But, what Yang is really, saying is, no, I actually don't care about this nation at all.
Greenhill being like, Frederica just being like, I noticed.
Right. I'm sliding the glass of water rather than the tea,
Right.
Yeah.
God, I love these subtle interactions in this show because there's so limited animation in general. They make it ridiculously obvious when there's a subtle thing going on.
Exactly.
Because the characters have these stiff movements and stuff, so it's almost like, it makes it almost kind of comical because it's a joke that we're in on.
Right. It's
because we see the subtle thing. And it's like, aha.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's something that is subtle from the standpoint that the other characters might not notice it necessarily.
Exactly.
But it is something where the show is trying to make it perfectly clear that you, the audience, notice this because that's what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
Greenhill is just sort of like, okay, I'm keeping an eye on what you're saying and things like that.
Right.
And, all right, maybe don't drink more alcohol right now. Maybe drink some water, because
that was a pretty good measured response.
But it could have gone worse.
I would like you to keep it that way.
Don't let it get any worse.
And I do care about you, dude. So like, I feel you. So know when I slide this over your way and I give you this smile, you know that you
what's
can
going
drink.
on.
You can drink all the alcohol you want once you get back to your room and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then they get the fine wine and the stuff there. But I like that we now have Yang being given the green light because if humanity is faced with extinction, every alternative is preferable.
Yep.
So now they're like, nope, you have supreme military
power.
Go
for it. We are promoting basically every single person that served under you and your fleet admiral now. Just
go and
save us.
Please save us.
Right.
Please let us not die.
One of the things that they did this episode that It was a little thing, but I really appreciated it, was when Yang and Julian went to go have dinner, right?
Yeah.
It felt like a callback to when Yang and his other friend, I can't remember who it was, maybe it was Julian, but they had dinner, and then everyone started like singing the national anthem or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
that was Julian.
Yeah, okay, that was
That
Julian.
was Julian, yeah.
But
Yeah.
seeing the waiter basically be like, he obviously knows who Yang is, right?
Oh, of course.
And so, he's talking, but he's being nice and polite and all that stuff. But treating Yang very, very sort of normally,
Right.
And then he's like, sorry, but because of, shortage of supplies and things like that, we can pretty much just do like a roast beef dinner. And Yang is not at all like upset about that or anything like that, because of course he wouldn't be. That's not the kind of person he is. But seeing someone that is in a high status position treat customer service people basically well, that is one of the easiest and fastest ways for me to fall in love with the character.
Yeah.
I already loved Yang before this, so it's not like there was anything that needed to be done, but thanks.
Right.
Thanks.
This whole dynamic, though, of them having the classic, let's sit together and do a little bit of expositing with each other, and then the show understands pacing well enough to be like, okay, a couple of these conversations need to be hyper abridged so that you as the audience are just aware of what's being communicated back
Focus
and
on
forth.
the new information, like the stuff with Degsby.
Exactly. So the idea that we now have them kind of briefly going over and even poking fun with the audience, be like, no, you don't get to know yet what he set up with Iserlon. We then basically, before we get into that, we cut back to the Empire, who is showing a little bit of stagnation with regards to their ability to decide on a strategic course. And I believe this is something that's rather interesting to bring up. What's being brought up here is that this is Reinhardt not being there, not being present.
Right, he's not the one directing the flow of the conversation.
And thus they are divided. The point was is that if they killed Reinhardt, the admirals wouldn't be able to come together and make this work.
Yeah.
So Reinhardt just being sick with a fever and thus having his thoughts dulled to where he can't really participate as much. You see Mariendorf looking at Reinhardt worriedly like,
hold on.
Hey, they're kind of just talking against each other here. There's not a lot advancing right now. This meeting is kind of wasted time. Are you okay? No, he's not okay. He's running a bit of a fever, so it makes it difficult to think. He's like, okay, you need a couple days of rest. Yep, he's a young guy, of course. Just a couple days rest, he'll bounce back from this, no problem.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that Reinhardt is, of course, the reasonable, practical person. There's no sense of like, no, I'll push through this. It's, okay, yeah, that's, okay, good shout, I'll do that.
Yeah, we're going to win eventually. We don't need to freak out right now because I need to take 2 days off.
Right, but, oh, damn, that really would have been awesome if Kierheis were here.
Yeah, wouldn't it have been? Oh my god, this show. I'm still salty about the fact that I was more predicting that freaking
Kierheis would be around for a long time.
Well, no, I thought he would die around this point in the show.
Right.
That was how long I thought he was going to make it. Like
but,
halfway into the show or something. But
he was so young and too soon, but... like, oh my god.
Yeah. Then we have the little conversation of them kind of breaking down the hyper dramatization of the history of the Alliance a little bit, which is kind of a cool thing to basically be like, yes, things are dire right now, and we could get into some despair and dramatics and stuff, but hey, darkest before the dawn, right? That's what our leader totally said that one time, a long time ago, that we,
And he was definitely the one who came up with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things of where symbols can be important and be utilized, but oftentimes history does our great persons of influence dirty because we kind of utilize them more to suit our ends rather than to acknowledge what they actually represented.
And potentially by doing so, you rob people of seeing the real person behind that miracle yang, that symbol, right?
True.
Because then if someone were to see that, it might be not
disappointing.
It might be disappointing, right?
Yeah, they can't promise ultimate victory to the reporters.
Exactly.
And stuff.
But then at the same time, that makes it kind of encouraging to the people who think, could I ever be like that?
Yeah.
because you
Like
don't
Julian.
have to be some god, right? You're just a dude that is maybe really interested in a pension,
Yep.
but you also have a knack for history, and that sort of helps on the battlefield.
Yeah.
You know?
And you have a bunch of successes under your belt, but it's really good every time these conversations happen with Julian.
Yep,
Because
yep.
every time Yang does this kind of stuff on screen, my brain goes into the, this is another death flag. This is another death flag.
Right.
Because Yang cannot survive this show. That's
Yeah,
the point of
eventually.
Reinhardt and Yang specifically, is that
Yep.
they're both not going to
don't-
die at the same time or anything.
Right, but you don't become legends until you die.
Exactly. They do not get to be truly put on the pedestals of being miracle workers until it's been
Right.
posthumous.
Oh, yeah.
And they even threw a little jab at that at the only other person that had been, promoted to fleet admiral anywhere near this young was someone at like 36 or something, and that was posthumous.
Right.
So it's just like, hey, Yang, you're only human after all.
And because really, like, the Alliance and the Empire both have their heroes from the past, right? With
course.
Heinesen and Goldenbaum. And yeah, they are kind of shaping up. So where if we do some time skip at the end of this series, then there will be a statue of Yang and a statue of Reinhardt, But until then, we get to see them, and Yang's whole line of always think about the enemy civilians. Like that was a great line.
For sure.
It was a fantastic line.
I think you. I wasn't going to correct you or anything, but you said Golden Bomb, and I thought that was a cool way of being like, oh yeah, Reinhardt is essentially going to be the legend of history. But I then remembered his last name is Lohengrin. It's just one of those things where I thought almost for a second there that you were like slipping like the Lohengrin is
mixing
already
the two
the
names
legend of history. But then I was
mean,
like, oh right, no, it was Golden Bomb.
Yeah.
But I wanted to bring that up as like a funny thing because it was like, oh, if you think about it,
The name's rhyme.
we are almost in that with just talking about these two characters eventually dying. We are basically seeing history then being like written in some ways, and Yang's maybe at times becoming more and more aware of it as he looks at Reinhardt with all of this awe and almost in some ways reverence for being able to do something that is usually looked at with a really negative light.
Okay.
Because he's a single person that's taken supreme power and wishes to then take that supreme power and enact it upon like the entire human race. That's such a recipe for disaster. And yet he's all like, yeah, it's kind of incredible though to see this ruler among rulers kind of come about and stuff. And yet he's only human. So,
Single point of failure.
Bro, you need to get
Memento
with your lady friend and make some heirs.
Make some Hilda babies.
Make some Hilda babies.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The little brief moment with Mercats and all the other people that will be members of the Yang squad. We got to see how they're all promoted. A bunch of vice admiral promotions, but even our pilots,
Conev and Poplin,
promoted to commanders and stuff. But I love that we get this little time with Mercats,
Yes.
where we then are putting a capstone in all the characters that kind of made this little group of ex-Empire citizens really, really happen. And, even getting just that little bit of time to see, the group that was meant to, to kidnap.
Yeah, Landsberg and what was his name? I forget.
Yeah, Landsberg and it was Konev, I believe. Yeah.
No.
Oh, sorry, Schumacher.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Konev. What the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah, Schumacher.
And good
being
job,
like,
Schumacher, to be like, hey, I
need to take responsibility here.
Right. I took this kid away from everything he knew, and
Manly.
I'm gonna do what I can to help him out. Like that's
This little shitling,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
It just does good to see these characters that are such tertiary characters in the plot sense have their moments of basically realizing that they have purpose where they're at to do some good. And then Mercat's having his moment of like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I need your, I'd request your approval though. And the guy just kind of goes, all right. Yeah. just go.
Okay.
Go. And then the other soldiers and stuff.
And there's only like 6 of
only
them.
like just less than 10. And they're just like, we're doing this, you know? They don't say a word. And he's like, he was going to order them, no, you can't. And he's like, wait, that's not where we're at.
Alliance.
Yeah. You can make your own choices.
Mm-hmm.
And
of course,
it's like, there's going to be so many people that die in this war here. This is where it's just going to be it has to be the part where we just go on the chopping block and just go shukung, 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 shukung.
Yep.
So here we go. This is happening.
It is.
And this is just like the beginning of the buildup, it seems. So y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. And all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general. And also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
Indeed. We stream Mondays through Fridays at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Monday is podcast. Tuesday is One Piece manga readings. Wednesdays and Fridays, Caleb does gaming.
I'm playing Hades right now.
And then Thursdays, I'm playing Persona 4 Golden.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.